welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at a massive, really systemic issue, which is the American K-12 education system.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It really is. And we're looking at it through the lens of this groundbreaking April 2026 synthesis report. Because our mission today is to uncover this AI-generated blueprint that basically proves the teaching profession can actually be fixed.
Right.
So if you're someone who loves learning but, absolutely hates information overload, you're going to want this shortcut.
Oh, definitely.
Because right now, the way we treat educators is, well, it's a lot like looking at a smartphone that has 10 incredibly heavy data-draining apps running at the exact same time.
Yeah, just completely draining the system.
Exactly. The battery is flashing at 5%, the screen is freezing up, and instead of plugging it in or closing some of those apps, the system's response is to just say, wow, this phone needs to try harder. It lacks resilience.
Right, which is absurd. You know instinctively that the system is crashing because the structural load completely exceeds the operating capacity. I mean, you don't just buy a new plastic case for the phone and expect the battery life to, magically improve.
But as you are about to find out, buying a new case what the battery dies is essentially the operating model of American public education.
It really is.
So to get to the bottom of this, we are diving into a report titled The AI Optimized Solution. It actually merges two really fascinating source manuscripts.
Yeah, The Impossible Job and The Vendor Cannot Fix It.
Yes, those two. It merges them into one comprehensive, evidence-ranked plan.
And what's really crucial for you, the listener, to keep in mind as we go through this is that this report isn't introducing brand new experimental research.
Right.
It's doing the synthesis that the educational procurement system has, well, actively avoided doing for a decade. It places every documented intervention on a single grid, models how they interact, and tells us exactly what works.
Okay, let's unpack this diagnosis first. Because before we can fix anything, we have to understand why it's breaking.
Absolutely.
Going back to that smartphone analogy, the modern teacher running on 5% battery, we hear the phrase teacher burnout thrown around constantly.
Too much, yeah.
Way too much.
Ah.
But reading this report, I started questioning that whole narrative. Like, burnout implies an individual failing, right?
Right, like they just gave up.
Yeah. Is the issue really that teachers are just less capable now? Or that they just need to grit their teeth and work harder?
What's fascinating here is that the data completely dismantles that grit narrative. It is not about a lack of individual capability at all.
Okay, so what is it then?
The crisis we are seeing is the result of a professional role that has been radically redesigned over the last 20 years, but without any corresponding redesign of the structural support.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the report lists 10 distinct structural failures. And when you look at them together, it's honestly a wonder the system hasn't entirely collapsed yet.
The job expansion alone is staggering. The report points out that a general education teacher isn't just teaching a subject anymore.
Not at all.
They are simultaneously responsible for content instruction, English language development, and implementing specialized IEPs and 504 plans.
Which, for those outside the system, are legally binding documents that require highly personalized accommodations for students with disabilities.
Right. And that's just the academic side.
Exactly. They're also managing PBIS, which is positive behavioral interventions and supports.
So like school-wide behavior frameworks.
Yeah, exactly. Add in trauma-informed response, and now enforcing the new Phone-Free Schools Act. That is 10 distinct professional domains, all being executed simultaneously in a single room.
For 30 to 35 students at a time. I mean, that's wild.
That caseload number is a critical structural failure. If you look at comparable professions serving vulnerable populations.
Like social workers.
Yeah, child welfare case managers or probation officers, their national standards strictly cap caseloads far below 30. And that is usually for one-on-one interactions.
Oh, wow. So 35 at once is just impossible.
Mathematically impossible. The human brain can only manage so many complex relationships and cognitive tasks at once before cognitive overload hits. A teacher with 35 students is prevented from providing individualized attention.
So the load is impossible. But then, when are they supposed to prepare for all of this? The contrast the report draws regarding planning time is almost absurd.
It's pretty shocking.
Look at Los Angeles Unified. 27 minutes of elementary planning time per day.
Yep.
Compare that to Finland, where teachers get roughly 300 minutes per day, or Ontario with 240 minutes a week. 27 minutes.
It's nothing.
I can barely go to the restroom, answer 3 emails, and make copies in 27 minutes. How is anyone supposed to design engaging lesson plans for 30 individuals in that window?
Well, they don't. Or rather, they can't do it within their contracted hours. It makes adequate preparation on the clock impossible.
Right.
And then you layer on the financial reality. The report highlights a record 26.9% pay penalty.
Wait, explain what that means in practical terms.
It means teachers are earning roughly 73 cents for every dollar earned by other professionals with comparable college education levels. In California, 91% of renter educators cannot afford to buy a median-priced home.
Which brings up a statistic that honestly made me stop reading and just stare at the wall.
The unpaid labor one?
Yes. Because they don't have enough planning time, teachers are reporting 9 unpaid hours of work every single week.
It's massive.
The report calculates that as extracting about $8,590 per year in free labor from every single teacher.
Yeah.
It hit me reading this, the American school system isn't just underfunded. It is actively operating on a secret subsidy of $8,500 of stolen wages from the very people trying to hold it together.
It's an operating model built entirely on unpaid labor and emotional extraction. And, the result of this structural collapse is entirely predictable.
People leaving.
Exactly. Nearly half of California teachers are planning to leave within 10 years. Nationwide, attrition is double what it is in high-performing systems like Finland.
Wow.
Yeah, and 68% of female teachers are reporting frequent, record-high job-related stress. This isn't just a tough post-pandemic season, This is documented exit behavior at a scale the system simply cannot replace.
Okay, let me push back here for a second.
Yeah.
Because if you read the news or look at district board meetings, aren't schools spending billions of dollars on cutting-edge apps and professional development?
Oh, they definitely are.
Right. It feels like there's always a massive new tech platform being rolled out to support teachers and fix these exact issues.
And this brings us to what the report calls the false cure. The system is crumbling structurally, and the dominant response has been to buy shiny external Band-Aids.
Band-Aids, exactly.
The report terms it the vendor economy misallocation. You really have to understand how educational procurement actually works.
Okay, how does it work?
When a district procurement officer evaluates a multi-million-dollar vendor contract, they aren't primarily asking, does this permanently improve student achievement or teacher retention?
Which is what you would think they'd ask.
Right, but they're actually asking, is this product deliverable? Can we process the invoice cleanly? Is this purchase defensible on a PowerPoint slide to the school board?
Wow, so it's an illusion of action. It's about defensibility, not actual outcomes.
Exactly.
And the sheer amount of money being thrown into this void is breathtaking. The report cites $8 billion with a B, spent every single year on professional development, or PV.
And the return on that investment is awful.
Yeah. The report notes an average measured student achievement effect size of 0.09 standard deviations. What does that actually mean in the real world?
To translate that out of math speak, a 0.09 effect size is basically statistical noise. It is a microscopic return.
So it's doing nothing.
It's the equivalent of a student learning almost nothing over an entire school year, despite millions of dollars being spent on training the adults.
That is wild. And then you have the pandemic relief funds. $38 to $57 billion of ESSER funds.
Yeah, the elementary and secondary school emergency relief money.
Right, the bailout money. And a huge chunk of it went straight to vendors. The report documents massive high-profile failures here.
So many.
Entire district-scale contracts for on-demand tutoring apps like Paper Education or AI attendance chatbots like All Here that produced absolutely zero recoverable outcomes for kids.
Zero.
Or platforms like Panorama that survey students and measure their trauma but provide absolutely no treatment for it. We are paying millions to measure the fire while refusing to buy water.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And we also have to look at how state policy changes interact with these missing structures.
Oh, right, the discipline policy.
Yeah. The report brings up a crucial note regarding student discipline, specifically looking at California's Senate Bills 419 and 274.
Okay.
Now, to be objective here, those laws correctly enacted equity reforms. They eliminated willful defiance suspensions, which data showed were disproportionately impacting certain minority student groups.
So the intent was a necessary equity reform.
Yes, exactly. However, the legislation eliminated the old exclusionary system without funding or providing any structural replacement for the classroom.
Right, it created a massive discipline vacuum. It essentially told teachers, You can no longer remove a highly disruptive student, but it didn't provide a counselor or a behavior specialist to help that student in the room.
Not at all.
It just left the teacher entirely on their own to manage severe behavioral challenges while still trying to teach a math lesson to 29 other kids.
Exactly. So you have a structurally broken job, billions wasted on ineffective software, and policies that increase the daily load.
Some Blake.
It does. But here's where we get to the fix. The AI synthesis did something humans in the procurement office apparently aren't doing.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes. It used a concept called interaction modeling. It looked at the classroom as a living, breathing ecosystem, a set of coupled constraints. You cannot evaluate a tool or an intervention in a vacuum.
Okay, let me make sure I'm getting this. So coupled constraints basically means you can't buy a brand new expensive software program to help teachers grade papers if you haven't bought them the 45 minutes of quiet time they need to actually log in and learn how to use it.
Precisely. If you evaluate an app all by itself in a lab, you might think it looks great. But the AI instantly rejected the vast majority of vendor spending because of how it interacts with reality.
Because the reality is chaotic.
Right. It threw out that low-yield professional development. It threw out standalone social-emotional learning curricula because their effect size was only 0.10 to 0.15 standard deviations.
Which again, basically statistical noise.
Exactly. It threw out trauma-informed training that didn't come with actual clinical staff to help the traumatized students.
Because just knowing a student has trauma doesn't magically give a teacher the capacity to heal it while teaching fractions.
Right.
But wait, I want to challenge something here.
Yeah.
The report mentions internal instructional coaches as a huge win.
Yes, it does.
The data shows that an internal coach working directly with a teacher provides a massive 0.49 standard deviation boost to instruction.
Which is huge.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
But does a 0.49 boost really justify the cost of hiring thousands of specialized coaches? How did the AI prove that was worth it?
It justifies it entirely, but only because of the interaction effect. A 0.49 standard deviation is equivalent to moving a student from the 50th percentile to nearly the 69th percentile.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive jump in learning.
It is. But, and this is the critical coupled constraint, that return completely collapses to near zero if the teacher has no protected planning time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you can give a teacher the greatest instructional coach in the world, but if you don't give them time during the day to actually practice and implement the strategies they're being taught, the coaching is utterly useless.
Okay, that tracks perfectly. If I want to get better at tennis, having a pro talk to me for 5 minutes while I'm currently playing a match against 3 people isn't going to help.
Exactly. You need practice time.
So if lack of time is the absolute biggest structural failure, how does the AI solve that first? Let's talk about the AI's core stack. I imagine wiping the slate clean. What are the actual load-bearing pillars of this plan?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a deep irony here. The AI didn't invent these solutions out of thin air.
It didn't.
No. The peer-reviewed evidence has pointed to these exact structural fixes for a decade, but the vendor economy refused to fund them because you can't sell teacher time or smaller classes in a shrink-wrapped software package.
Right. There's no subscription model for time.
Exactly. So the AI groups these interventions by how they support each other. It starts with time and support.
And the baseline there is restoring planning time to 90 minutes a day, right?
Yes. The AI calls this non-negotiable.
But you can't just magically create hours in the school day without shortening the time kids are learning, so how do they achieve that?
They pair that 90 minutes with the deployment of highly specific AI differentiation tools, things like Magic School or DIFIT.
Okay, I've heard of those.
Yeah, the data shows that by automating the creation of lesson variants, grading rubrics, and compliance documentation, these tools can return about 5 hours a week to a teacher.
That's incredible.
It's the cheapest, most immediate way to provide structural relief.
Okay, so we give them time and tools. But time alone doesn't fix a dysregulated student throwing a chair across the room. We talked about that discipline vacuum left by the new laws.
Right.
How does the core stack address personnel and discipline?
This is where we replace those external vendor workshops with internal support. The AI requires funding internal instructional coaches, about 1 for every 15 to 20 teachers.
Okay.
And more importantly, for the discipline vacuum, it mandates standing up BCBA behavioral support teams.
What's a BCBA again?
Board-certified behavior analysts. The plan calls for 1 for every 2 to 3 schools, providing actual on-site crisis de-escalation and behavior planning.
Meaning, when a crisis happens, the teacher isn't alone. A trained specialist steps in, which
Exactly.
leads perfectly into the next layer of the stack, structural scale.
Yeah.
Because we can't just treat discipline issues in isolation, right? We have to look at the whole community.
Yes. The AI advocates for expanding the community schools model nationally.
Which means what, practically?
A community school integrates mental health services, family engagement professionals, and even health clinics directly on the school campus.
Oh, wow, like a one-stop shop.
Yeah. Think about how this works practically. If a student has a severe toothache in a normal system, they might miss 3 days of school waiting for an appointment at a county dentist.
Right.
In a community school, they walk down the hall, get treated at the on-site clinic, and are back in math class by 10 a.m. It has massive structural effects on chronic absenteeism and achievement.
And while we were talking about scale, the AI found that reducing class size is the ultimate amplifier for all of this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Phasing in class size reductions down to about 18 students.
18?
Yeah. The report cites Project STAR, a massive longitudinal study which proves a 0.22 standard deviation lifetime effect from smaller classes. Lowering the student-to-teacher ratio makes every other intervention infinitely more manageable.
It really does. But none of this stack holds together if we don't fix the foundation. And the AI points to two foundational economic pillars.
Yes, the money.
First, close that 26.9% pay penalty. Stop the bleeding. Pay teachers what comparably educated professionals make so they actually stay in the profession long enough to become masters of their craft.
Exactly. And second, as a crucial enabler, the report insists on fully funding IDEA.
That is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
Right. Back in 1975, the federal government promised to cover 40% of the extra costs associated with special education.
But they don't, do they?
No, currently they only fund about 13% of it. That massive shortfall forces local districts to cannibalize their general budgets, which cascades directly into larger class sizes and fewer resources for general education teachers.
So it's all connected.
The AI recognizes that if the federal government simply paid the bill it legally promised to pay 50 years ago, districts would instantly have the local capital to fund the rest of this structural stack.
Okay, I have to admit, looking at all of this, 90 minutes of planning, hiring thousands of behavior analysts and coaches, massive pay raises, capping classes at 18.
That's a lot.
My immediate reaction is sticker shock. I'm sure you listening are thinking the exact same thing. This sounds incredibly, impossibly expensive. How does this not instantly bankrupt every state in the country?
This raises an important question, and it's the most common reaction. But it's where the cost arithmetic of the AI's plan is so compelling.
Let's hear the math.
Yes, the peak cost is estimated at $115 to $135 billion a year nationally. But we have to contextualize that. The current combined K-12 spend in the United States is roughly $870 billion annually.
Okay, so we're talking about a fraction of the total budget.
Right, roughly 13 to 15%. And the math works because of two crucial mechanisms: termination and redirection.
I love this part of the report. The AI is absolutely merciless about cutting the dead weight.
Merciless.
We immediately recapture $5 to $8 billion simply by terminating all that low-yield vendor PD. We stop buying the useless tutoring apps, the unproven software, the survey platforms that don't fix anything.
Exactly.
We take the money we are already spending on things that definitively do not work, and we redirect it into the human core stack.
And then there is the incredible ROI, or return on investment, regarding retention. When you close the pay penalty and improve working conditions, teachers stop quitting.
Which saves money.
A lot of money. The report shows that every 1% drop in teacher attrition saves a major state between $35 and $75 million annually in replacement costs.
Wow.
When you calculate the compounding cost of constantly recruiting, hiring, and training brand new staff every 2 years, it is staggering. When you stop the turnover, the system practically pays for itself over a decade.
But you can't just flip a switch and hire 100,000 behavior analysts overnight. The sequencing is vital here. The AI actually maps out a phased timeline, right?
It's a systemic rollout. You don't ask for better outcomes until you've provided the structural conditions that make those outcomes possible.
That makes sense.
The AI dictates that teachers have to feel relief in year 1. That means rolling out the AI lesson planning tools that save them 5 hours a week and getting those BCBA behavioral teams on campus immediately to stop the daily disruptions.
Then, in year 2, because the structures are in place and the adults aren't constantly in crisis mode, students start to see behavioral stabilization. And by year 5, the durable achievement, like the academic gains from class size limits, really starts to compound.
We've talked a lot about standard deviations, billions of dollars, and interacting variables.
Yeah.
But the true test of this synthesis is what it looks like on the ground.
Right.
Let's bring it down to eye level.
Let's look at Monday morning. For you, the listener, what does this actually look like in reality? Let's imagine a fourth-grade teacher arriving at school under this AI-optimized plan.
Okay, picture it.
She walks into a classroom of 18 students, not 32. She actually has 90 minutes of protected planning time built into her schedule.
Amazing.
The AI assistant already drafted 3 different reading level variants of her morning lesson overnight, so she just reviews them over coffee instead of writing them from scratch at midnight.
That's huge.
And when a student becomes severely dysregulated, she doesn't have to stop teaching the other 17 kids. A trained BCBA is on-site within minutes to help co-regulate that child. And that 9-hour unpaid labor subsidy, gone. She is paid as a true professional, and she goes home on time.
And flip the perspective to the student on that exact same Monday morning. A student whose file is flagged for severe trauma isn't just taking a multiple-choice climate survey on a Chromebook.
Right.
They are sitting with an actual on-site clinical counselor. An English language learner is in a reading group small enough that the teacher can actually hear them pronounce the syllables.
They're actually seen.
Exactly. A student who is 3 grade levels behind isn't told to log into an unmonitored tutoring app at 9 p.m. They get high-dosage, certified tutoring right there inside the school building. The classroom becomes a human ecosystem again.
Stop buying the fantasy and build the structure. That is the ultimate takeaway of this deep dive.
Couldn't agree more.
The AI looked at all the noise, all the billions of dollars wasted on defensible but useless products, and came back with a very clear mathematical directive.
Redirect the vendor dollars.
Measure the actual outcomes, not just the invoices. Treat the classroom as a complex human ecosystem, not a software problem that can be patched with an app.
And remember, the evidence for every single piece of this plan has existed for years. We know this works. The data is unassailable.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought for you to mull over.
Yeah.
If the exact, peer-reviewed, evidence-based roadmap has been available to us for a decade,
It has.
and if an impartial AI can look at the data and instantly prove that funding the human foundation is the most fiscally and logically sound path,
Right.
does our educational procurement system actually want to solve the problem? Or is there a hidden, highly profitable comfort for the adults in keeping the system broken, selling us a new phone case every single year while the
Yeah.
battery quietly dies?
Something for you to ponder.
Thanks for diving deep with us.